Hello Internet, and welcome back to Addativ. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, so the first thing I should say is Happy New Year to all of my viewers, the three of you that actually watch anything. So it's 2026 now, but in all honesty, YouTube is something I want to keep doing. And things just got in the way for evidently a little while. So I'm still going to follow up on my promise though, so this is a Beltmatic video. I'd recommend you watch my first video about Beltmatic if you don't know what it is. It also happens to be the first long form video I uploaded. We'll be showing something that looks like that though. Beltmatic does take a while to load for me, so I'm going to cut that out for you. Now I do have to pause the game because there's some lag from that massive machine up there. So I think we're going to start where all things start, especially with MAMs, which we're going to be discussing in this video. Not the first MAM in Beltmatic history, but the first one I made. So if we just move down a bit over here, if I can find it, there it is. That is my first MAM, first make anything machine that I have made in Beltmatic. But that's not the most efficient, and it's not the easiest to understand. But once you get a feeling for MAMs, I think you'll be able to work through it. So this is the universal MAM, which is an efficient, modular, make-anything machine. It has modules, which actually make the number, and has other associated parts, which we'll get to explaining in a bit. Now, this is there's the huge machine up there, but this is where I keep all of my MAM designs. So you'll be able to see a universal make anything machine, universal MAM right there. It's where the one in the center with the pink thing above it. So just navigating over here, there's also some other advanced Beltmatic technologies, techniques, things, machines I'll be discussing. So I think the first thing we're going to take a look at is sort of the idea, the concept behind MAMs. I did explain them in my last video about Beltmatic, but I think you'll be able to understand a lot more if I actually show you. So in here you have 5s and 2s that are multiplied together and they make 10s. Now, a MAM works by multiplying these 10s by themselves a number of times, exponentiating them to have a certain number of digits, or a place value. Now, you multiply that place value by the digit, and you add all of them up to get a number. So what happens is you have the exponents, 9 through 2, in there, and you actually don't need to have an exponent for 1 or 0, because exponents for 1s make 10s, which you take directly into the MAM. And then you also have exponents for 0s, which make 1, so you just put that digit, type that digit right in there. Now this is where all the digits go. It would be 9 through 0. And up top, you have 0s produced by subtracting numbers from themselves, because anything minus itself is equal to 0. So then we're going to take a look at a MAM actually in action. So this is just a couple MAMs I built to make some numbers to beat the game, work on the game. So I think we're going to actually do this. Why don't we make the number 1,259,000? So if we're going to do that, nothing in the 1s, 10s, or 100s place. So we're just going to put placeholder 0s there, placeholder 0s there. So we can see that happening right now. And then we're going to do it in the 9,000s place. A 2 in the 100,000s place. Skip the number there, there's a 5 in the 10,000s place. And then 1 in the millions place. And everything else gets a placeholder 0, right? Because there's nothing else there. If you can hear in the background someone's car just honked. Hopefully you can hear that. It's annoying. So I'm going to clear out what used to be in this MAM and run it. Now you can see I have just a little bit of lag. Unfortunately, because of how Beltmatic runs, I can't speed it up to make it work. It's just skipping frames here, which is annoying, but hopefully you'll be able to understand the concept behind it. So as you can see, they're being multiplied together and added with that chain of adders up top. So this does take a while. Once it gets started up and once numbers start being produced, you'll see them go out that belt on the side. There they are. So you have the tens being exponentiated, making all those place values. You have them being multiplied by their digits, for example, 0, and it's being added with that chain up top, right? So there they are, there's the output, and if you zoom in, you can actually see that it's 1,259,000. Now let's talk about the other MAM designs that I have. First I have to clean this out. So first pause the game to get rid of that terrible lag. If you play Beltmatic for yourself, I'd recommend keeping your machines concentrated, keeping it clean so you do not get terrible lag. Although I think most of that lag comes from that enormous machine I had up top. Right? So for other MAM designs, really I focused on trying to make 3 belt MAMs, since you see how those storage blocks are 3x3. That makes it easy to work with 3 belt increments. Now this one where I just triplicated all the number of operations, not very efficient. This one where I actually linked 3 universal mechanical machines together is relatively efficient for as far as large mechanical machines go. You'll see one that isn't very efficient later on though. Yeah, keep teasing that. Now another pretty interesting MAM that I have made. Well, actually, before we get there, that are used in that big one up there, those 3 MAM blocks. This is an older MAM that I made. It's pretty inefficient. I have 2 pretty interesting ones. They both follow that concept using 2. So this one takes 2s and adds them together. I'm going to leave this as an exercise for the viewer to see how that binary logic actually works. You make it BAM using only adders. And now this over here would take a 2 right there, and by doing some manipulation, it can actually produce all of the powers of 2 and 1s and 0s. And what you do is multiply those powers into 2 by 1s and 0s, like in binary, like a computer, and actually add them up with a chain of adders up top, as you can see right there, to make a number. Now this does reduce by a factor of 2 because of its design, so you have to divide by 2 and get your output right there. Now there's other interesting Beltmatic technology that I want to talk about, namely duplicators and digital logic. Now here we can see a universal 9-digit duplicator. And this duplicator works by effectively taking an input number up top and dividing it by some large number so you can isolate blocks of digits, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That number, if you divide it by 1,000, you get a 1, 2, 3, and a 4, 5, 6. So you take them and you multiply them by, say, 100,000 plus 1, 100,001. So that way you get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? And then dividing it by 100,000 actually gives you 2 blocks of 1, 2, 3. One in the remainder and one in the quotient. So you then take those blocks of numbers and multiply them by that large number without adding 1. So you get 123,000, 123,000. And then you add it up with the chain right there, the chain of adders. And you actually get 2 belts, 2 times your original number. It does require a lot of inputs though, so I would say using a mechanical machine is actually a lot more efficient than duplicating. And there's also digital logic. It's actually possible to make all of the logic gates and a Turing machine in Beltmatic. You have a 1 to 0, 0 to 1 Turing machine right there using a subtractor. And you have an AND gate, an OR gate, a NOT gate, a NAND gate, a NOR gate, a XOR gate, and a XNOR gate. As you can see here, I actually got a half adder. And right below that, there's actually a full adder. which is made up of logic gates like the half adder. And by chaining the full and half adder together, you actually get a 4-bit adder like that. Now, there's also half subtractors and a standalone half subtractor. There just needs to be different ways of how subtractors work, especially in Beltmatic. Now, using a couple half subtractors, you can make a full subtractor and a standalone full subtractor. And by chaining a bunch of things together and putting a standalone bit at the end, you can get a 4-bit subtractor, which actually takes two numbers in the 1s, 2s, 4s, and 8s place and subtracts them. Now you can do inverse operations with a 4-bit adder and a 4-bit subtractor, and you can actually have them reverse each other. Now, it was also working a 4-bit multiplier at some point, but it's unimaginably slow, uselessly slow. But it was an interesting exercise in logic gates and Beltmatic technology. Hasn't even finished it's 10 times 10 yet. Now there's also... take a look at that. So now there's also some other logic gate stuff I've done, like this expression. Still has not finished calculating. And then there's also a different type of digital Beltmatic technology, right, using 1s and 0s. It's actually over there, if you can see where I'm zooming in on, and it is like belt control. So you have like huge things that look like that, but it's really made up of smaller base units. I'd like to call the microduper and number gate. Now it takes a control bit of 1 or 0, 1 letting it through, 0 not letting it through. And it uses the fact that when dividing by 0, the number is actually just output in the remainder. And there's a 0 for the output. So by manipulating things, you can actually take a number, and if you put in 1, it passes through, and you put a 0, it's sent out a different way to a number disposal. Since 250, the 32-bit integer limit is the highest number you can get in this game. So when you add something to it, it just doesn't keep increasing. So when you cycle an entire belt through with 4 adders, they just disappear. And then there's also this microduper, which just uses those duplicating principles, and it simply just duplicates a single digit. Now you have a number comparator. It takes in two numbers and outputs a 1 if they're equal and a 0 if they're unequal. And actually uses those microdupers and some subtractors and a divider to do x minus y divided by x minus y, if you can see what I'm trying to explain there. So what you get is, if you're dividing 0 by 0, you get an output of 1, and if you're plus 1, right, if you get an output of 1, and if you're dividing something that's not 0, you get a remainder of 0, by the nature of the formula. So then training a bunch of those together, you can actually get a comparator gate, which lets a number through if it's equal to another number. Then using some number valves, number gates like that, you can actually make this, which takes a 24 belt signal and kind of let or not let 24 belts of numbers through. You can actually duplicate a signal using a signal duplicator right here. There's also a standard digit duplicator right here that just duplicates the digits. And those are actually used in that enormous machine that I had shown multiple times earlier. So what it does is actually just a 24 belt make anything machine, taking input digits right there and passing it to 24 individual universal make anything machines right down these belts. You can see it's a lot of belts. Now it also takes tens up top, tens and the exponents. So we have those digit inputs, and then there's those exponents and those tens. And you can see all gets funneled to the bottom and output right here. And then it's actually sent all the way down this enormous 24 belt thick belt to the center, and that's how you input numbers. Especially in the late game, you want to use large scale MAMs. Now you can see over here, it's a little different from the image I showed earlier in the video. You actually have all of these digit duplicators, which produce 24 belts of digits for the MAM out of one belt of digits. So you can actually break down a number and duplicate a couple things, and have a single number program a massive MAM like this. But sometimes digits might be equal to 0, and it breaks that. So you need to check if they're 0, and use these gates to either let 24 belts of zeros through or not let 24 belts of zeros through. I don't think I'll be doing another Beltmatic video, at least for a little while. So I'm going to actually focus on finishing this machine to sort of see where we can go with that, especially in Beltmatic technology. But before I finish, I know it sounds like I'm wrapping up, there's also this first band that I want to talk about. Now, the digits are actually, see where the digits are labeled? Digits are produced up there, and you have the exponentiators, like we saw with the Universal Man. But the digits are actually just input into these enormous belts, and you can actually see the numbers are being multiplied by right there. And then there's the multiplier block and there's the adder block. Now, it's very inefficient. It only produces 3 belts. But for a first MAM, it's very good, actually. While it might not be the best MAM, it really helped me understand Beltmatic technology. So this video is getting kind of long, and I like to, if you haven't noticed, I like to try and limit my videos. My short forms to 2 minutes, and my long forms to about 17 minutes long. So I think I'm going to fade out of Beltmatic in a couple seconds. Here we go. Okay. Thank you again for watching. Addativ, it's an experiment for me. I think it's really good where it's going. But before things get too prolonged, I'm going to roll the outro.